when we get to trading profit and loss account, whereby you first prepare trial balance and you extract those information in preparing trading profit and loss account and the balance sheet. What are the format of the trial balance? So this is the format of trial balance. We have particular, we have debit and the credit side. So I will give you the techniques, because we are going to the illustration now, illustration of trial balance, where the techniques you use to know which one in the debit side or which one in the debit side. So it will help you to know which one will fall under the credit side and the debit side. So this is the techniques. Anything that has to do with assets. Asset, if you are giving information, you must debit. You debit all assets. You debit all assets at the end of the day. Then, if it is liability, you know, we can have different types of assets like a motor van, furniture and fittings, equipment, and the likes. The techniques you can use when you are preparing trial balance, because we still get to the information where you will have to put them under the credit and the debit side. Now, anything that has to do with assets, you debit it. And we have different types of, we have assets, we have a motor van, we have furniture, equipment, cash, bank, stocks. So all those, they are under assets. So if you see any kind of items like this, it is coming under a debit side. Then liabilities, anything liability, you credit it. You credit it. Then you can have different types of liability. We have creditors, we have loans, we have debenture, we have capital. And this capital also is a liability. Do you know why it is a liability? Is that you know that accountants are guided by accounting concept, and that is the concept that guides this capital as the liability, is that is what we call entity concept. Entity concept says that a company is separated from the owner who have economic interest in it. So any capital put into the business is a liability to the business. Now, another one is expenses. Expenses, all expenses will be debited. Debit the expenses. And what are the expenses? We have wages and salary. We have electricity. We have insurance, and any expenses that you incur at the end of it. Any item that goes in with the expenses, you debit it. Then debit loss, credit gain. Just follow this technique. It will assist you when you are preparing your trial balance. Then debit expenditure, debit credit revenue. So you credit revenue, you then sales. If you are given sales items, you credit sales. Then purchases, you debit purchases because it's also a form of expenses. So if you follow this rule, then cash book. When you are to prepare your cash book, of which I lay emphasis on when we treated the analytical cash book, receipt, debit receipt, and payment, credit it. So these are the tactics. Just follow this. Any account that you want to prepare, any account, branch account, anything, this is if you follow this technique, it will assist you even when you are to prepare ledgers or any form of account like that. Now let's go to the question. So trial balance, we have particular, we have debit and credit. So purchases will be debited. don't forget the techniques I gave you. Anything that has to do with purchases must be debited. So that will help you in knowing, even it is not only restricted to trial balance, it goes beyond trial balance. It can also help you when you are preparing your ledger, because you know that all the information that you are given was extracted from the ledger. Now, motor expenses is an expenses, and I told you that anything that has to do with expenses must be debited as well. That is 7,800. Now here we go. Rent paid. Rent is also an expenses. Rent is an expenses. It has to be debited. Then commission received. Are we to debit this or to credit it? Commission, you receive commission is an income. So, and I told you, I told you the other time that anything that has to do with income has to be credited. So that is 6,000 naira. But if it is commission paid, is an expense, it has to be debited. Now, salaries and wages. Salaries and wages is also an expenses. So that is 10,000 naira. Then we have insurance. Insurance is also an expenses, and that is 1,200. Then electrical expenses. Electrical expenses is all the same thing as electricity. That is also an expenses, so it has to be debited. Then we have sales. Sales is a revenue. So anything that has to do with revenue has to be credited. It's in your format. You can check it. So that is that. Then we have motor vehicle. Motor vehicle is to be debited because is an asset, and is also a real person. Is an impersonal account. So, and you know that we are under a personal account, we have nominal account and real account. So it falls under the real account. So it also has to be debited because it is an asset. So that is 50,000. Then next information, furniture. Furniture is also an asset. That one is 35,000 naira. Then we have stock. Stock is also a tangible. It's something that you can see. So it's also an asset. Stock. So stock is so that is stocks. Then we have the capital. You know, I told you the other time that capital is a liability, so it has to be credited. That is 50,000 naira. Now we move to cash. Cash is an asset, so we put it under the debit side. Then last but not least, rent received. Rent received is an income. So it is money that comes in, not rent that you paid. Unlike this rent paid. But when you receive rent, that is the income, you receive income. So that one has to be credited. That is 20,000 naira. You see that at the end of the day, you now total the trial balance. The figure of this must correlate with figure of this. And if they did not correlate, that means there is a mistake in your posting. After you add all this, you'll be given 496,000. 170 plus this plus this plus this plus this plus this plus 68,000 plus 35, 177, 150, 15,730. Then the same thing applies to credit side. You see that you get the same. So in doing this, you see that the arithmetical accuracy is correct. So that is how we get our trial balance. But mind you, if the figure on the debit side and credit side does not have the same exact amount, that means there is an error somewhere. That is the way we prepare trial balance. We'll be going to what we call correction of error. What brings about correction of error? Why did correction of error emerge? It occurs when, I told you the other time that when there is a disagreement between the debit side and the credit side of the trial balance. If the figure is not correct, that means there is an error. So that's what leads us to what we call correction of error. Then you locate that figures, or you locate the items that was omitted, or anything, any error might occur, of which we are going to do justice now. We have different type of errors in the trial balance. There are some errors that if they are non-inclusion, if they are not included in the trial balance, they will not affect trial balance. Yes. And then there is another